Good morning, everybody. My name is Neha Hamilton, and we were studying research methods of management. So, today we are going to understand a very important part of research, which is called as measures of dispersion. We have partially covered this topic in the previous classes, and today we are going to study in further detail the standard deviation where we left in the last class. So, measures of dispersion is very important whenever you are doing data analysis. As I've explained to you earlier, that measure of dispersion is a part of descriptive statistics, right? Measures of dispersion is a part of descriptive statistics that we have to study. In descriptive statistics, we basically explain the characteristics of the population. When I say characteristics of the population, we define our sample, we define the type of uh, sample we have, what is the central tendency, that means what is the mean, mode, and medium that we explain in the first part. That is called as measure of central tendency. And after that, we measure measures of dispersion. So this measures of dispersion gives a good idea on how the data has been spread around the central tendency. So these are the learning objectives. We are going to understand dispersion, range, quartile deviation, mean deviation, standard deviation, variance, coefficient of variance. These all things we are going to understand in this lecture. Let's do a quick recap of what we have studied in the last lecture so that we can make the rhythm of standard deviation. We can come to that topic. What is central tendency? See, central tendency gives a bird eye view of the entire data that are called as averages of first order. Averages of first order helps you to calculate that what is the central line or what is the central part of your data where mean, mode, and median are there. As I've already told you, if the data is symmetrical, if the data is normally distributed, the data will be perfectly symmetrical around the central tendency. That means the left side of data is exactly equal to the right side of the data. Then we call the population as perfectly normally distributed. It serves to locate the entire of the distribution, but they do not reveal how the items are spread out on either side of the central basis, right? Central tendency gives us an idea on how the what is the middle point of the data, right? But it doesn't give any idea about the dispersion. Dispersion means how the data is spread around the central point. That doesn't give any idea about that. Measure of dispersion are also called as averages of second order because they are based on the deviations of the different values from the mean or the other measures of central tendency that are called as averages of first order. So we need to understand that there are averages of first order and averages of second order. What is averages of first order? In averages of first order, we are calculating the mean, mode, and median, right? That is giving us first-hand information on the median value of your population. When I talk about averages of second order means uh, after finding out the first order, we are finding details on the second order. So we are finding out that how the data is dispersed from the uh, mean, mode, or medium, right? So that is called as measure of dispersion. That's why it is called as averages of second order, right? This all we have understood. Dispersion is the measure of variation of the items, and it is the variation of extent to which individual items vary. The next point is purpose of measuring dispersion. Now, why do we measure dispersion? This also we have covered. Firstly, it is one of the most important quantities used to characterize the frequency distribution. Secondly, it affords a basis of comparison between two or more frequency distribution. See, if you have to compare frequency distribution between two populations, how will you go about it? The only way is to measure the frequency distribution among them, to measure the dispersion, the amount of dispersion the first population has, and the amount of dispersion the second population has. Right? This is the only way through which you can understand or you can define or compare the frequencies of the two populations. One of the most important qualities to characterize a frequency distribution and also to compare the frequency distribution between two populations. Now, measures of descriptions are dispersion are descriptive statistics. The most similar scores are to each other, the lower the measure of dispersion will be. The less similar the scores are to each other, the higher the measure of dispersion will be. In general, the more spread out a distribution is, the larger the measure of dispersion will be. Now, these are the quantities through which you can calculate measures of dispersion. We have range, we have interquartile range, we have semi-interquartile range, we have coefficient of quartile deviation, we have mean deviation, we have standard deviation, we have variance, and we have coefficient of variation. So these are basically the methods through which you can calculate dispersion, right? It is very important to understand dispersion to understand nicely the distribution of your population on a particular graph, how your sample looks like, right? So it is very important to understand these features so that you are easily able to define the frequency distribution of your population, right? Now let's move to the first point, which is called as range. Okay. So what is range? As I have explained you, very simple. You just have to subtract the largest value from the smallest value. Because you are subtracting the largest value from the smallest value, the answer has to be in positive form, right? So it is very easy to understand what range is, but range give you a limited view or a limited conclusion about your frequency distribution. You are just subtracting the largest value to the smallest value, so it is just giving you the range of your dispersion. Means this is the largest point and this is the smallest point, right? Just the range, not the distribution that we are interested in. So this is the most important demerit of range, that it gives us limited conclusion about a frequency distribution, right? Now let's move further. This is the example I have shown. If you will see at the last example that I have shown, these are two example of ranges which are given, and if you see carefully, the two ranges are completely different. If you see the numeric figures, it is 11119 and 13579, right? So there is a huge difference. The one number is the mode in the first population, and in the second we'll see that the central point is 5, but still the range is same, which comes out to be 8, because 9 minus 1 in the first case and 9 minus 1 in the second case. So the range comes out to be same, but the distribution is very different from each other, right? So this is the basic disadvantage of range, and that's why we have come up with some other methods of range. We have studied interquartile range. So in interquartile range, we have studied that what do we do? We basically divide the data into two parts, right? We divide the data into two parts. The first part is called as Q1, quartile 1, and the second part is called as quartile 3, right? Now, quartile 2 is the median of this. For example, I've explained you with this example. The first part is quartile 1. You are exactly dividing the data into two parts, right? First and the foremost step in anything you do, right? Whether it is descriptive statistics or inferential statistics, remember the data must be placed in either a decreasing order or in an increasing order, right? Most of the cases it should be in increasing order, right? This is the thing that we have to remember. Now you have to distribute the data or divide the data into two parts, two equal parts. The first is called as quartile 1, the second is called as quartile 2, right? Because it is an even number, total number of data points that we are giving you is 18. So we can split them into two equal groups of 9 each, right? And now what we are going to do, Q3 minus Q1. So if you see Q3, what is the middle figure? Median is 62. Here the median is 49. So we'll negate 62 minus 49. So the interquartile range comes out to be 13. So 13 is the answer. So very simple to calculate interquartile range. Now after that we are going to understand what is quartile deviation. So it is a second measure of dispersion, no doubt improved version over the range, right? So from the range, it is slightly or improved version in which you are understanding, you are taking the formula of interquartile range and then you are dividing it by 2, right? So it is half of the difference between the two quartiles. So this can be told as semi-interquartile range. Okay, semi-interquartile range is a bit better, one step ahead from the range, and gives you a kind of a better response. Then we have semi-interquartile range, that is Q3 minus Q1 divided by 2. Then we have coefficient of quartile deviation, right? Now, how do we find out the deviation? The relative measure of dispersion corresponding to the quartile deviation is known as coefficient of quartile deviation. So, whatever dispersion is happening in the quartiles, this dispersion or this deviation we are going to calculate, right? So, what is the formula of quartile deviation? It is Q3 minus Q1 divided by Q3 plus Q1, right? And this will always be less than the 1 and will be positive as Q3 is always greater than Q1. Because why? Because as I have told you that you have to arrange the data in the increasing form, right? If you arrange the data in the increasing form, the second part is Q3, the first part is Q1, right? So Q3 has to be greater than Q1. Smaller value or coefficient of quartile deviation indicates lesser variability. So smaller the value of quartile deviation, smaller the variability, higher the value of quartile deviation, higher the variability, right? After that, we have studied mean deviation. Mean deviation is known as average deviation, is taken from any average, especially mean, mode, median. While taking the deviation, we have to ignore the negative items and consider them, all of them as positive, right? So these are the formulas. Mean deviation can be calculated by mean, median, and mode. These are the formulas. Summation D divided by n, right? Here D stands for mean, M stands for median, and Z stands for mode, right? So this is the formula of mean deviation. Now, when we talk about standard deviation, we have to remember the name of the gentleman who came up with this idea. His name is Carl Pearson, and when it was introduced in 1893. So, this is like the most useful and most popular method of dispersion. And the standard deviation is best of all the measures. So, it is the best way through which you can find out the dispersion of your population. Now we have to remember that sorry, it is denoted by a term sigma, and it is always calculated from arithmetic mean, median, and mode is something which is not considered here. We are only concerned about the mean and the median, right? Whatever drawbacks the range was suffering from, that has been covered in standard deviation, that it only considers two values and neglect all the other values of the series. So in standard deviation, we are taking care of all the values and we are not neglecting even a single value in the population distribution, right? So these are the merits of standard deviation. I will quickly come to standard deviation, students, right? Because these are some things that we have already covered, right? So what does it measure? Basically, standard deviation, whether your data is widespread or your data is close together or it is narrowly spread. So this is something that we measure. This is the formula of standard deviation that we have to remember. It is square root summation x minus x bar. X bar stands for the total average. Whole square divided by n means total number of observation and brackets close. Right? This is the formula of standard deviation for population and sample. And finally, the formula you have to remember is the first one that I have discussed, right? Now we are giving you the examples, right? We are giving you 10 weather stations of Britain on a winter day, and you have to find out the standard deviation in this data. Now, what will you do? Tell me, what is the first step that you are going to do? Yes, you are going to arrange this data in the increasing form. Okay, children, next thing that you have to do is you have to make a table, and in that table, you have to write all the components of the formula x, x bar, x minus x bar, and x minus x bar whole square, where x stands for all the temperature ranges that they have given us, right? What is x bar? X bar tells us the mean temperature, then the square root, okay, then the summation, right? Then we square the summation, and n is the total number of values. Let's see how it is done. I have shown you how it is done, right? We will do x, we will write down all the values which are written here. You will write the values, then you will do the summation, then you will divide by n. What is n here? Quickly count. What is n? The total number of observations. What is n here? N is 10. Okay, if you will count, there are 10 observations, right? You will divide. This is how the answer comes 5. Okay, next step, x bar. What is x bar? X bar is summation x about divided by n. So 5, it will remain same for everything. Now you will perform the next operation, which is x minus x bar. You will do that. Then you will do square of that, because you do not want to consider the negative signs. That's why we are squaring it out, right? Then we are summing it all up, right? You are adding it all up, right? We have already covered this exercise in the last class, so please don't do it again, but just try to remember what we have done. Just try to revise what we have covered in the last class. So we will add it up. The answer comes out to be 80. We are dividing the number by the total number of observations, that is 10. So 80 by 10 comes out to be 8, right? So 8. So what is the eighth observation? What is the eighth observation, right? So the answer is 2. Here you can see that the answer is 2. Take the square root of the figures to obtain the standard deviation. Round your answer to the round your answer to the nearest decimal, right? So when you are rounding out your answer, when you are taking the square root of this and you are rounding your answer, you are getting the number as 2.8. So 2.8 is the standard deviation. Now, how to decode this 2.8? Let us understand nicely, right? So this is here where we have to begin the standard deviation. So, for example, our 2.8 means there is 68% of the chance of the temperature falling within plus minus 2.8 degrees Celsius of the mean temperature of 5 degrees Celsius. So, what does the standard deviation mean? There is 68% chances that the temperature is going to deviate from 2.8 degrees Celsius to what is the mean 5 degrees Celsius, right? So we are getting a figure of 68% probability. 68% is what standard deviation, right? It is a chance that 68% chance of temperature falling within plus minus 2.8 degrees Celsius of the mean temperature 5 degrees Celsius. This sentence is very important. That is one standard deviation away from the mean. Normally, values are said to lie between 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations from the mean, right? Normally, the answers that we tend to get is 1, 2, and 3 from the mean. So, this is a diagram or graph through which you can see or understand, right? Where did the 68% come from? This we have to understand. So this is a normal distribution curve. Okay, it is a bell-shaped curve, right? This is how a bell looks like. So this is a bell-shaped curve with most of the data clustered around the mean value, and where the data gradually declines the further. As you will see, the left and right side, the data is declining very slowly, right? Declines the further you get from the mean until very few data appears on the extreme, right? So here from the graph, it is very clear that this, the middle line is called as mean. The data around the mean is the maximum. The data away from the mean towards the axis is very less. Okay, very less, right? Now, for example, uh, people people's height, right? If we take example of people's height, so most people are near of average height. I am talking about this. Most people are of average height. Average means we are talking about mean, right? Now let's comes to the left part. I am highlighting it so that you can read that part only. Okay. The next part is some are short, right? So because the graph is declining, some of the people are short from the average height, right? Now some of the people are tall. Okay, because as we are going away from the x-axis, the number is increasing, and because the number are increasing, that means some people are tall. Okay, now let's come to the extremes. Very but few are very short, and few are very tall, right? So this is what the data is telling us about most of the people near the average height. So most of the people have average height. Some are short, some are tall, and when we go towards the axis, some are very short and some are very tall, right? Now the next thing that we have to understand is 68% of the values lie within plus to minus 1 standard deviation of the mean. So if you look here, right, this area, this middle area, if you can see my cursor, this middle area is basically tells us that 68% of the population values lie between these, right? So this is plus 1 and this is minus 1. So the value is 68% of total values lie between 68%. Now, B, let's take B as standard number 2. So 95% of the values lie within plus minus 2 standard deviation of the mean. So this is the second line that you can see. So we are marking as plus 2 on the right side and minus 2 on the left side, right? So 95% value of will lie between plus b to minus b, or plus 2 between and minus 2. Now 99% of the values lie between plus 3 and minus 3 standard deviation. So now nearly all the values are being covered. So 99% of the values lie between plus 3 and minus 3. So this is the meaning of this diagram, and this is the meaning of standard deviation. As we can see that 68% of the data is between plus 1 to minus 1. 95% of the data is between plus 2 and minus 2, and 99% of the data is between plus 3 and minus 3, right? If you look at the graph, you can see that most of the data is located within the standard deviation on either side of the mean. Even more is located within the second standard deviation on the either side of the mean, and all the data, almost all the data, which is 99% of the data, is located within third standard deviation on either side of the mean. So if we cover standard deviation 1, 2, and 3, that gives us a complete idea of the full structure of the population, the full dispersion of the population, right? So this is how we calculate the standard deviation. Find out the standard deviation of a ungrouped data, right? So we have ungrouped data, we have family numbers given, which is a nominal data, and also the size of the family is given. And we have to find out the standard deviation in this. So now let us understand how to find out standard deviation in an ungrouped data, right? So we know the formula, right? If you write the family number, then you'd have to write x. X means the total number of individuals which were given in the last slide. So we have just written this, right? Up to here it is very similar, right? Now what is the summation? The summation is 50, right? The summation is 50. Now what will happen? 50 by 10 comes out to be 5, right? Now 3 minus 5 is minus 2. 3 minus 5 is minus 2. Uh, and 4 minus 5 is minus 1. 4 minus 5 is minus 1. 5 minus 5 is 0. See here the value has comes out to be 0. 5 minus 5 is 0. Then 5 minus 6 is 1 and so on, right? So that is xi minus x. Xi means the observation we are specifically talking about. Minus x is the average that we have taken. Now what is the next step? We have to divide it by 2, right? What do? We square it, right? So it is 4, 4, 1, 1. Why we are squaring it? Because we do not want to consider this negative sign there. This is the major reason why we are squaring it, right? And then what we are doing after squaring, we are just adding it, the total number comes out to be 270. After doing all the calculations and doing the square root, the answer comes out to be 1.48. Okay, so I am giving you 2 minutes of time. You yourself write down in your copies and please do it in your copies. Okay, do it in your copy so that you understand how we have actually solved this problem. Okay, just write it down in your copies, all the values of x, then x minus x bar, then x minus x bar square, right? Just write it down. Okay, after understanding the ungrouped data, let us understand the standard deviation of grouped data. How do we do it? You have to write down the observations, then you have to write down the frequencies, then uh, because the formula is bit different in group data and ungrouped data, so please write down the formulas in your copy so that you do not get confused between the group data and ungrouped data, or whatever standard deviation we are measuring, right? So these are x, then we have f, then we have fx. How we are calculating fx? 3 multiplied by 2. 5 multiplied by 3, 15. 7 multiplied by 2, 14. 8 multiplied by 2, 16, and 9 ones are 9. Right? So this is how we are doing it. Then simply we are squaring it. Very simple, right? Then we are doing xi minus x bar, right? So we are negating the mean, right? So I think the mean is 6. So 6, 3 minus 6 is minus 3. 5 minus 6 is minus 1. 7 minus 6 is 1. And that's how we are negating from the mean. We are squaring the values to get rid of the negative sign. And then we are multiplying the values with the f figure that is written, right? So it comes out to be 18, then it comes out to be 3, 3 ones are 3, then 2, right? That wise. Then we are doing the total of these figures. Okay. So see, fx is 60. This is the fx column, the third column is the fx column, right? If we add all these value, what is the answer that is going to come? The answer will be 60, right? So you will write 60 divided by total number of observations is 6, right? Then you have to find standard deviation square f x minus x bar whole square. The answer is 40 divided by 9 is 4.44, right? So this is what the standard deviation is. Okay. Now we have to calculate the variance. Variance is defined as average of the square root deviation or square of standard deviation or set of observation. If we square the standard deviation, and then we can find out the variance. What does the variance formula mean? Variance is the mean of the squared deviation scores, right? The larger the variance is, the more the scores deviate on average away from the mean, and the smaller the variance is, the less the scores deviate from the mean, right? Now let us understand coefficient of variation. Now, what is coefficient of variation? The coefficient of variation indicates the spread of values around the mean by a percentage. Earlier, we were calculating just in numbers, but now we are calculating it in percentage. So it is very simple. You find out the standard deviation, multiply it by 100 and divide it by mean, right? This is a simple formula that we have to remember of the coefficient of variation. Standard deviation multiplied by 100 divided by mean. Okay. The higher the coefficient of variation, the more widely spread the values are around the mean. This is mean if the coefficient of variation, as the name suggests, variation, higher variation, more spread, lower variation, narrow spread. The purpose of coefficient of variation is to let us compare the spread of values between the different data, right? So, for example, comments of children in a community, right? So standard deviation is given, height, mean height is given, standard deviation in height is given, right? Here weight is given, standard deviation in weight is given, coefficient of variation is also given 0.125 and 0.20. Since the coefficient variation of weight is greater than that of the height, right? 0.20 is greater than 0.12, right? 0.125. So we would tend to conclude that the weight has more variability than height in the population, right? The weight has more variability as compared to the height in the population, right? So this is how coefficient of variation makes it very easy for us to compare the two set of data. If I have the coefficient of variation of two set of data, I can easily tell that which data has more variation, which data has less variation. Lesser the value, lesser the variation, more the value, more the variation, right? 0.20 is of weight, coefficient of variation of weight given in the example. So weight has more variability as compared to the height, right? The measures of variation are useful for the treatment of data collected from the study. The study of measure of dispersion can serve as a foundation for comparison between two or more frequency distributions, right? So measures of dispersion, what is the main aim of measures of dispersion? It helps us to find out the difference between the two frequency distributions. Standard deviation or variance is never negative. If your answer is coming in negative, please check it out again. It cannot happen because we are squaring it, right? We are squaring it, then we are taking out the square root. So how your answer can be in negative? When all the observations are equal, standard deviation is zero, right? When all the observations are equal, then standard deviation becomes zero. That means there is no deviation. Everything is on the mean. Mean, mode, and median are exactly similar. So if they are exactly similar, no dispersion of the population, then how we are going to get deviation? We are not going to get deviation. When all the observation in the data are increased or decreased by a constant, standard deviation remains the same, right? Standard deviations remains the same whenever it is whenever we apply them in increasing or decreasing order, right? Okay, children. So in today's class, we have discussed about what all things we have discussed about. Let us understand again. See, whenever uh, you are going for data analysis, as I always kept on telling you that whenever you are doing data analysis has two parts, right? The first part is called as descriptive statistics, and the second part is called as inferential statistics. In descriptive statistics, again we have to understand, in descriptive statistics, we measure two things. Now, what are two things? The first is measure of central tendency, and the second thing is measure of dispersion, right? These are the two things that we understand in the measure of descriptive statistics. Now, the second thing that we have considered is uh, inferential statistics. When I talk about inferential statistics, I am talking about uh, statistical operations or statistical techniques that I am applying on a particular set of data, right? So that becomes inferential statistics. Whether you are applying parametric test or you are applying non-parametric test in a population, doesn't matter, but everything comes as a part of inferential statistics, right? In descriptive statistics, the first and foremost thing that you have to do is you have to find out the mean, mode, and median, because these are the first order averages that will help you calculate the second order averages that we have covered in the today's class, right? So what are the second order averages, students? The second order averages that we have studied today, the most important is standard deviation and coefficient of variance, right? Standard deviation and coefficient of variance are the most important techniques through which you understand and you calculate descriptive statistics, right? Because they give you the exact picture of how your data is dispersed around the mean, right? You get an exact picture of how much your data is dispersed from the mean. Okay, so this is very, very, very important. Standard deviation. You have to write down the formula, remember the formula, solve some questions, right? And solve some questions with the help of, forget about range and mean deviation. They are not very important. We do not use it generally. We generally use in all the research studies the standard deviation and coefficient of variance, right? We use coefficient of variance because coefficient of variance give the answer in percentage, and as a researcher, it becomes easy for us to calculate in percentage and compare the two set of data in percentage, right? So range is important, students. Standard deviation is important. I'm giving you an example. I'm giving you an assignment right now. In that assignment, what you need to do is you need to study 5 research papers, right? I'm talking about, not, please do not study the quantitative research papers. Study the quantitative research papers, mathematical research papers, not qualitative papers or theoretical papers. You have to find out their data analysis. In the data analysis, you have to find out descriptive statistics. Okay, because till now we have only covered descriptive statistics. We have not started inferential statistics till now. So it is very important to find out what people are doing in their descriptive statistics. So you have to make a table. In that table, you have to write down serial number, then title of the research paper that you have studied, right? Then uh, after the title of the research paper, you have to write down. Uh, First point is data analysis. So what in descriptive statistics they have used, whether they have used first order averages or they have used second order averages. If they have used mean, mode, or median, please write it down why they have used it and what how this um, descriptive statistics is helping them in inferencing the right answers. This you have to find out, right? So at least this exercise you have to do in 5 different research papers that will help you understand that whenever you will start your own research paper or you will start with your own data analysis exercises, you will be in a right position to answer the questions which are uh, related to uh, data analysis, right? It becomes very important. So this is a small part of assignment that I'm giving you, and I expect all of you to honestly do this assignment that is going to help on and improve your understanding of a particular research paper, right? So that is very important, right? So uh, I think that's it for today. I'll ask you two or three questions. You have to answer those questions. The first question is, which is more accurate? Point number one is standard deviation. Point number two is range. Point number three is mean deviation. Point number four is nothing. So what will be the answer? Right. The answer should be the standard deviation, because standard deviation is the most accurate method through which you can calculate the uh, measure of dispersion. Now, the second question that I'm going to ask you is, which kind of measure of dispersion gives you answer in percentage, right? The first is range, the second is standard deviation, the third is coefficient of variance, and the fourth is none. So, what should be the right answer? Very good. The answer should be coefficient of variance, in which we get the answer in percentage, right? The most accurate one is standard deviation and coefficient of variance. And whenever you want to compare these in easy terms, or you want your answer in percentage, you always use coefficient of variance, right? So these are the two questions that I've shared with you, so that you always remember that we use standard deviation as a measure of dispersion, and we use coefficient of variance whenever we are looking for a percentage result. Please always remember that your answer can never be in negative, right? Your answer always has to be in the positive values, right? If your answer is in positive values, then only your answer is correct, because in standard deviation we are squaring it out, right? If you see the formula of sigma, we are squaring it out, and it should always like come between first, second, and third, plus one, minus one, plus minus two, and plus minus three, right? So it should always fall in between these three criteria, right? So this is very, very important that you need to understand. So these are the things that you should always keep in mind. Here I am completing the next chapter of data analysis, which is measure of dispersion. Measure of central tendency we have already covered. Now we'll move towards the next topic in the next coming classes. We are going to discuss about inferential statistics. There we are going to talk about the parametric test, non-parametric test. What are the parameters on the basis of which we choose the right kind of test. So these all things we are going to cover in the coming classes. That's it from my side. I'm going to end the meeting now. Thank you so much for joining and listening.